women have led since Eve ate the apple. You know, whether you believe in evolution or creation, I always jokingly say, women have led since Eve ate that apple. So the convergence of leadership and empowerment for women is important to really think about, especially now, especially now. And I'm looking in the eyes of people that I know have great dreams and aspirations for a lot that they are capable of doing in the world ahead. And more so, this session today was about the empowerment of women over the years, how that has evolved, what we've learned from it in the US workforce, and examples of where that's happened, such as my own professional experience that could help others learn from that experience. So leadership and career growth qualifications, I believe, should be identical for both a man and a woman. There shouldn't be any difference. They're the same set of requirements, whether it's skills, capabilities, morals, ethics. But speaking specifically about corporate life for a role within a business, there's becoming less and less of a distinction between males and females being hired simply based on gender. So in essence, most any woman can enter most any role that a man once held, assuming it appeals to you. Think the military, think doctors, lawyers, scientists, Wall Street bankers, commercial real estate developers. I have 3 friends from huge female commercial real estate developers. They're not brokers, they're not property management, they're not asset management, they're developers. They own the dirt, they go get the dirt, they negotiate it with the bank, and they build buildings, right? And they're all retail. There are numerous females in roles, and in 2020, women make up 50.4% of American jobs, excluding the self-employed. Almost 80 million women hold jobs in the US workforce today, and over 30% of them are now CEOs, and over 48% of them are in middle to executive level management. A lot of leadership from women. So women began making a name for themselves, not only in the origins of mankind when Eve ate that apple, but also just a few hundred years later, when Mordecai said to Esther, "You've been called for a time such as this." And she literally led with wisdom and discernment the toppling of a plot to mass slaughter her people. She just knew intuitively, and this is a word I want you to remember, that at that point she should lead. And so for those of you who may not know, that's a book in the Bible, by the way. It's just fun to read. If you're interested in the whole story, it's like reading a romance novel full of intrigue and overcoming obstacles, murder plots, and a spoiled princess who ends up being empowered to use the qualities she most likely didn't even know she had to save an entire nation. But I make that point to say that everyone from Margaret Thatcher, who was the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, to Carly Fiorina, who was COO and then became CEO of HP, Hewlett Packard, to women empowered at the largest companies such as Google and Facebook, they were all given a job, positions, resources, and opportunities to optimize their lives, and many of them their families. I'm certain that not unlike me, every one of these women looked for ways they could become more empowered to fulfill their roles, which is what we're going to talk about. I believe women bring an incredible sense of curious thinking to any organization. And in many cases, this curiosity, it puts us in a position to be both critically intelligent and emotionally intelligent thinkers. Mainly because, and there's really science to substantiate this, we have very distinct intuitive capabilities that are just simply hardwired into our DNA. And if you're willing to develop those innate instincts to their fullest potential, intellectually, mentally, emotionally, and corporately, very important, all those come together. You have the perfect formula to empower both yourself, but more importantly, others around you in the workplace. Because that's where the real magic happens, is when you become empowered in a way to potentially empower others. That's what builds the greatest companies in the world. When Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg hired Sheryl Sandberg, remember this, away from Google, as COO to run Facebook, now becoming the largest, most profitable, one of the most powerful companies in the world. Imagine the number of male counterparts that were passed over. To this day, Zuckerberg says Sheryl was the best thing ever happened to Facebook. He said Sheryl is savvy, bright, and here's that word again. Her intuitive abilities helped me realize I didn't have that as a founder. I needed someone like her running the inside so I could achieve the outside goals I had as an entrepreneur and visionary. But that was such a profound comment. He's made that many times in speeches. Women have been given tremendous opportunities in modern society to utilize every aspect of our minds and our skills. But what makes a person in a company, just like we're sitting in today, whether the hiring manager is a man or a woman, empowered to climb higher, be heard more often, and to be trusted, like Sheryl Sandberg was by Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook. So based on my experience, I believe there are 8 fundamental things that you should do to be what we are calling this session an empowered woman or an empowered person. So number 1, be who you said you were at the interview. Whether you're entry level or the new head of lease accounting or property management or COO or CMO, be the professional and the person you said you were in the interview. Be absolutely certain you have presented yourself exactly as your skills, your personal and your professional attributes are. This will play well for you in the years as the years progress, as you'll be meeting, or in most cases, you're going to be exceeding expectations. And so people are going to empower you to do more because you have consistently been that person you said you were with the skills you said you had. And you're consistently showing that and growing that. A company spends a tremendous amount of time and money determining who to hire to best fill roles, searching for that right fit. You have an obligation to be who you say you are and do the job at the highest level of skill and thought and productivity on the first day you walk into the door, should you have been hired. It's extremely distracting to have to let someone go who doesn't meet the qualifications they explicitly said they could do. This is anywhere from saying you had a certain level of experience and skills to how you conduct yourself every day among your colleagues or the leadership of the company. So be sure you meet the qualifications and expectations of the role, or just don't take the job. Showing up and doing what you do best is the best way to build trust. Which brings me to my next point. Build trust daily. You may work for the same company for many, many years, contributing your knowledge and your experience in that company. Or you may have acquired your knowledge and work experience over a variety of different types of companies like I did, be it small, medium, or large, and very sophisticated. Either way, the only thing that matters to a company and to its leadership is, can they trust you? Number one thing, to be equipped with the right tools and experience to do the job they assigned you to. You said in the interview you were. 2, to elevate the company every day. meaning you bring value, you bring innovation, and you bring that high level of productivity, which I'm sure everyone in this room needs those standards. 3, learn the organization. Learn this organization or the one you work for. Learn the business that that organization is in, and then learn the industry that that business and that organization has chosen to be in. Huge advantages for you when you do that. Huge. When asked at my final interview by the top executive, the one at the time, the largest development firm in the country, I'm at my final interview, and he says, he's number 3 in this multi-billion dollar organization that I joined and spent the first half of my career in. He said, what is it you would really like to ultimately accomplish here? He's leaning forward and asking me this. And I said, well, so outside of really bringing value and helping to grow the company, I'd like to have my boss's job, assuming she has retired. At the time, she was a CMO. I'm coming into the org, right? At 20-something years of age. Instead of being threatened, he was hugely impressed. From there, he made sure I was sitting in numerous meetings in every area of the company, in addition to doing my daily job. I was given the opportunity by this very important leader to learn all about the company, every department, every division, every service we offered, the back of the house support services. Here are the strategies that these individuals talked about and discussed in order to grow the company. It was educational, it was inspiring, and of course, he had empowered me. It was empowering. The insights I gleaned from those meetings helped me learn how to think the way I needed in order to enhance my career. In doing so, even though I was prepping for a career in corporate branding and marketing and organizational management, the only way I was going to find real satisfaction I had felt in a long-time career in commercial real estate was to know just enough about the entire business and industry that it would provide greater motivation for me to want to get up every day and go achieve my goals. So I did just that. And yes, it meant longer days. Yes, it meant going to a lot of meetings and having impromptu talks and coffee with people I admired at the company for the knowledge they had. It meant following people around like Herb and the CEO and the COO and the head of property management, the head of brokerage, the head of accounting, the head of asset management, like a protege. But in the end, it proved to be incredibly beneficial to me. I became one of them. So one last point I'll make here. Learn what other people's jobs are at your firm. It's amazing how many people right now in this room don't really know what the person next to them does every day. There's a wealth of education and empowerment sitting right next to you today. Number 4, don't aspire to a title. Aspire to a purpose. I've always loved to work, to achieve, to network, to build teams, to lead, and most importantly, to learn. So one of my first mentors told me that I could most likely achieve any title I wanted. I was maybe 25 years old. Not sure they should have said that at the time. I'm not sure if he thought I was smart or if he just thought I was a good negotiator. But I remember thinking as my career unfolded, and I felt I was on a trajectory path in the right direction, how lame my career would have been had I only worked towards a title. Certainly, we're all human, and we know that human psychology prompts us to be achievers, title seekers, and winners, and producers, or just affirmed by the people we work for. But when I flipped the switch from achieving a title for, in essence, what I call a plastic affirmation, and towards a purpose, everything changed. Everything. I saw the role as being less about me and more about everyone else. I remember thinking, how could I make larger contributions to a company I'm working for? How could I tangibly and intangibly add more value? What I realized was in helping everyone else become successful, I was almost unknowingly becoming more valued myself by the company that I served. So building and developing teams, creating solutions to remove barriers to work productivity, something we all work on every day, elevating confidence, solving communications issues, breaking down barriers to get upper level buy-in more quickly, and mentoring, while I myself was still being mentored, was something that became a huge differentiator for me. And again, it filled me with purpose and empowerment. Number 5 of the 8, effective communication. Notice I said the word effective, because effective or non-effective communication, in my view, is the make or break of most companies over their lifetimes in business. Companies can be around for years and just never solve this. But the ones who do so with people at every level of the organization, from entry level to senior roles, as effective communicators, or at least people who recognize the need for productive communication. Because remember, that's why most of us are really here. Think a moment about the investment a company makes in each and every one of us. Think about the brain power just within this room today. Think about if everyone here turned the dial up, just a fraction of 0.1% of communicating their ideas, how much more productive companies can be in sales and marketing, how many more products they might produce, how many more services they would build revenues around, and how much more satisfied employees would feel after working a long day. Because frankly, we're here to deliver professional skills and to add valuable feedback and insight or team building communications. So in every position in every company, communication should be the one thing a company spends the most amount of time promoting, creating processes for, encouraging, requiring, getting barriers out of the way for, breaking down silos for, and empowering everyone from entry level to division management to executive level to provide feedback and meaningful ideas. Companies are communities. A giant, massive community of ideation and production. That's about it. So do you think that Amazon became Amazon just because Jeff Bezos was spewing ideas every day and barking orders? Bezos will tell you he surrounds himself with people smarter than he is. And he demands communication on anything. On anything. He demands people talk and get their ideas, then whatever it might be. This is how it worked for years at Google too, and look who they became. But the founders have both remarked of Amazon and Google in numerous speeches. They built their organizations around effective communicators. The worst possible thing that can happen in a culture or to an organization is for people not to be able to express ideas or concerns or even risk to the company. My husband's been fortunate to run many very large companies, and he absolutely insists on constant communication, mainly because it mitigates so many risks. And ultimately, it increases a lot of value. So what happens when communication isn't there at the highest level and people feel that opportunity to do so, it generally paralyzes the best players. And best players then move on to where they can safely express their ideas collaboratively. Best players who rise also realize that not every idea or opinion they have, I might have, one of you might have, is utilized. And leaders then take what they believe to be the best of the best and in the best interest of the company. But effective communicators understand not all their ideas are going to be used, but an effective communicator understands that it is their job and their role to communicate ideas. And you'll hear a couple of people who, like Walmart, Sam Walton built Walmart based on that one key principle. But to be heard in any company, one must practice and learn how to communicate effectively. Effective listening is another reason people rise. It's one thing to deliver great ideas. It's another thing to be able to sit and listen to them from all of your colleagues and from each other. Most of the more successful companies in the world will tell you that their turning point came when one person in the company suggested X, Y, or Z. They listened, like Sam Walton says he did, Mary Kay said she did, I'll tell you that in a minute, and the business took off. Didn't come from them, came from someone in here. So throughout my career, and still to this day, I go to communications and effective listening seminars, free networking series, I listen to sermons, speaker series, industry-oriented groups to learn how to listen. And any one of these will teach you also how to think. Number 6, be responsive. One of the things I took from some of the people I admire the most, who I either mentored or was mentored by, one I actually married, was the importance of being responsive. When I got into my career, business was becoming more about a person's individual success. We were all becoming much more isolation and about self, right? Remember this 20, 25 years ago? It was all about us, right? You. The me thing, I think Oprah introduced that or someone like that. And I realized then there was a lot of gaps in that shift. So I intentionally determined I would be number 1, accessible to colleagues and team members, always accessible, and 2, highly responsive. Both had huge payoffs, but the second one really mattered. Just simply responding with an appropriate period, period of time to anyone and everyone, no matter their position in the company, to the person in the mailroom, as fast as I would respond to, let's say, the CEO. It was incredibly meaningful to them. And it left a mark of differentiation. He's different. She's different. She cares enough to get back to me. Remember, even if you don't have an answer, remember we are all exactly the same human race with that same basic needs, on our way to some level of self-actualization. So responding to one another is a critical trait to master and to encourage. I have never had one person tell me, ever in my entire career, that they wish I would have taken longer to respond. So 7 is be curious. Never stop learning. Be curious about how things are changing in your world and in your community, but also in the business sector where you live and you work. The company you work for, how are things changing? The culture. By keeping curious, you keep learning. What learning does is it builds your intuition, here's that word again, about people, companies, and ideas that you can contribute back to your company. And continuing to make contributions, again, as we said earlier, is the entire reason a company hires you initially and hopes you'll continue to build value for them and their brands and their products or services. It's not about having a big badge of 15 years or 50 years anymore. What really everyone wants is to know I can continue to add value. Sam Walton, who was founder of Walmart, he thought that he could learn from anybody. He believed he could learn from his yard man. I mean, he was a yard man at one time, by the way. People at any level of organization, including his managers and his employees in the store, he said, taught him the most about supply chain management. And that's really how he became who he became. He was just a magician at supply chain management. So he was just as fun for learning, most specifically from all the talent that he would put around. He would get in a car and drive for hundreds of miles when his top leaders in the company just were out of ideas. He'd say, okay, let's go get in the car. And they'd drive 150 miles to a store. He'd walk in and go to the back room and start talking to some guy, and he'd have the next idea for his entire change, his twist, his new turn in the supply chain management strategy. He'd go back, and these guys would be sitting, guys and gals, a couple of which I know would be sitting in Bentonville, Arkansas going, the dude knew exactly what he was talking about. The guy in the back room knew exactly what he was talking about. So they changed the whole system to image that, to mirror that, and he makes another billion. So it's really, everybody everywhere has something of huge and significant value to contribute. So for me, I read about, I'm gonna say 100 pages a week on today's rapidly changing retail landscape. I love that stuff. I stay up to date on anything that talks about customer preferences and shopping behavior because I've done retail, right? And consumer behavior is a huge part of being successful in my role. So digital trends, corporate trends, culture, organizational management is something I love to deep dive into. Biographical overviews of people who really get it, who really love business. They love to work, they love to produce, and they never see what they do as a job. And so I get very, very inspired by those stories, and I apply a lot of that in my own professional life. I take cues from all of this. I mentioned earlier, in the same way I would listen to my doctor if he says, take care of yourself, Lisa, take vacation, or just take time away, meditate, reframe things, reset. That advice is as important, and possibly more so, than anything else I've said today. So great mental and physical health keeps you sharp, keeps you intuitive and invigorated to keep learning and contributing at your highest level. And finally, be humble. I don't see titles and positions in company when I get here today. I see individuals who are in community to build or sustain the growth of a company that's providing our livelihoods. Mary Kay said, I get a little emotional reading this. Mary Kay said, every time I see someone who's carrying a huge sign that says, make me feel important. Mary Kay was more than just a makeup company. It was a crusade. That's how she built the business she did. And she called her employees consultants, and Sam Walton called his employees associates. Those were their titles. They were both confident people, but they knew the real reason why they were successful. It was the teams they had surrounded themselves with. You and I are not just selling, we're serving. So to recap, empowerment is literally inside every organization. It's just there for the taking. You're willing to look at it like this. You either understand what it takes to become empowered, or you just check a list off every day that you get to the office. The latter, in my view, just reeks with boredom and mediocrity. Two things, the two number one things people complain about the most about their work is boredom and mediocrity. But it doesn't have to be like that. It's completely up to you to determine if you want to be empowered. And if you do, then these things I just talked about briefly are ways that I have found the fastest means to an end. So let's recap really fast. Number one, don't be anyone else but yourself. Be who you portrayed yourself as being at the interview, and be the best of yourself every day. And don't be impressed by people in business who tell you that sounds corny. Don't follow that leader. They don't get it, meaning they don't get the fulfillment of a life and career well lived and well shared. Build trust, earn it, don't expect that it's going to come for free. Just because you're really good at what you do, that doesn't mean a company will trust you. Just because you're top sales doesn't mean a company trusts you or will entrust you or empower you with more. Your character and your reputation are the only things you really own while you're in this world. So protect those. Learn the business. This shows a company that you're committed for the long haul. Don't look for recognition in titles or positions. Just be passionate about what you do, and those will come to you as a result. Progress and achievement should be pure, not forced, not gained by trying to please or live up to someone else's expectations. Set expectations for yourself according to what you want out of your life and career. Be an effective communicator. Anyone can learn how to do that. It just takes training and practice and the willingness to get better at it. Be responsive. This cements you in the minds of others. Keep being curious and willing to learn. Remember that life just doesn't end with an 8-hour day. And be humble. And one main reason for that is because one day, someone else is going to be doing what you do, what I do. So be glad to have had the opportunity. So thanks for your time on that. And we're going to open it up for any conversation or dialogue, comments, or just what have you. I want everybody to sleep.
Thank you. No, thank you for that. It was really good. I'll make a comment on your first point. Yes, be yourself when you're in an interview, but I will just make a point that a lot of times, and there's statistics on this, that women will go into an interview and they feel like they have to be, 10 out of 10 out of everything they're asking for. Men will go into an interview and they know three of the qualifications, 3 out of 10, they'll apply, and they have confidence and they'll get the job. So just because you might not know one of the things doesn't mean you shouldn't apply, you shouldn't even try for the job. To be honest with it in an interview, but that's a difference that I've read about between men and women. Is men will go in and not know a lot of what they're supposed to be doing in that role, but they're confident, they portray that confidence, and a lot of times they'll get the job.
So you're saying that women will actually, in essence, maybe be a little more honest, that no, I don't know that.
Yeah.
Instead of
So sometimes you may not know everything. That doesn't mean that you're not qualified. It just means you haven't checked off, 10, maybe you've checked off 9 out of 10 of those items, and you can learn the 10th one. But be honest about it. But don't not apply because you don't think you're qualified.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I'll share a personal example. I remember when I interviewed with Lisa, she asked if I knew how to use Adobe Illustrator and if I knew how to update site plans. I had no idea what a site plan was. She said like a map. Oh yeah. Maybe I've used design programs. I had not, that was the one program I hadn't used, which I was honest about. I have not used that one. TCU has you focus. That one's the easiest one, design programs to learn. So they have you focus on the other ones. And she's like, well, if you know the other ones, and yeah. So here's an example of not knowing one skill, but being confident.
As it turned out, Natalie knew a heck of a lot more than what, just as you just said, she realized she knew. And being at the top of her,
Yeah.
the class, and her professor kind of had suggested to me that she had a lot of skills and things that were almost, you just hadn't been able to apply them. I do want to mention Natalie, Carrie, and Michelle, as you all know, work in, we're the team over in marketing on the digital side. Of course, we've got a lot more going on over that all of these three young women are empowered women, and they just have grown immensely in the organization and brought so much value. And that's when it's really a blessing to be able to attract people, but to keep people and retain people that really and truly do love what they do in their individual independent roles. And I think that's even more the reason for you to go down a path that you and apply yourself. It's never too late, by the way, to make those changes. I don't think you have to have started in them at 5 making pot holders and end, your life somewhere, doing digital marketing or something, or branding companies or corporations. But do what you love doing, and that's what all three of them have shown, that they continue to grow because they are impassioned by what they do. And you can find that kind of passion within the role you're already in. It just takes, again, good communication, solid communication between you and perhaps your division leadership or your managers or others. But I think most of us try to share that amongst one another. I've seen that a lot in this organization. Did you want to ask a couple more questions about what other people's experiences might have been?
I don't have any specific questions, but I don't know, does anybody have?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think in a company, as an entire organization, do you think it's important that everybody in the company is curious and willing to learn? Yeah.
Sandy. I'm like, you go.
Yeah.
To your question, Natalie, I can't say to say that 100% of the people in the company, because every company you're gonna have your, little worker bees, your doers that are gonna be doing things that they're happier, they're satisfied in that role. But I will say this organization that with Weitzman and with Herb's focus on business and the way he is, it almost opens it up and naturally empowers people within the organization to grow big on promoting from within. So if you follow the steps as far as, building the trust, learning the business, you're never too old to learn. Ask the questions. Don't be afraid to ask the questions, and continuing to grow, that this is a great organization as far as really empowering people and being able to have a voice. But you're always going to have companies that there are going to be those that just aren't curious. They're very happy. They're very happy doing the 9 to 5. They're the little worker bees. And every company is going to have that.
Okay, but it's not like, because I personally know I always like to learn, but there's some people who, it's totally.
That's human nature, and that's just the way, we're all made differently, and that's, to me, that's just kind of indicative of human nature. So, if we all, oh my God.
Keep going. Keep going.
Well, let me grab the cookie here. But I think that, for people, the people that are very content, the 9 to 5 job, and just very content and working and doing their job. And maybe their passion is after the job. Maybe their passion is home life. And, sometimes people, they don't always have that work-life balance where they are passionate and are 100% fulfilled with their job, but they put that into their home life. And that's okay too. So, it's just, to say, is everybody curious or wanting to learn? That's not always the case.
I think, Sandy, to your point, that's what makes an organization great. Is you're going to have a mix of all different types of people.
Right.
And you are going to be the types of individuals that are just focused on their position. And those are great individuals to have your organization. Then you have those that want to look across the galaxy to see what's there, follow these 8 steps. So again, you have to have all types of individuals within your organization to make it run like a fine oil machine. Because if you have too many people that are just overly curious, then you lose some stability. So
True,
it took me a while to kind of understand, well, why can't everybody be so, type A, et cetera? Well, you need all types within your organization to be successful. Just
If we were
because
all
someone's.
type A's, we wouldn't get anything done.
Exactly, exactly. So, that's what I've seen for my career.
Going back to what Sandy said, I worked at companies where they, the going thing was you had to be in property management for 10 years before you became a manager. And so when I got into property management, I was kind of like, whoa, this is a lot. Having to be in, I can't get promoted unless I've been with the company for 10 years. That's wild. But I got here and I got so much support that was the natural, trajectory, so.
Great story.
Male here. I mean, obviously, these 8 skills are incredibly important exclusively and inclusively, and they apply to both men and women, but in women's history and through your careers, has there been anything in this list that has either been more difficult being a woman or something you had to work harder on because you're a woman? And I guess it must probably older generations, things weren't always as equal and fair, and they may not still be.
That's a great question. That's an absolutely great question. Who's gonna take a jab at that one?
I was gonna say, I think as a woman, I think sometimes being an effective communicator, I think that is being taken seriously. And I think that's been a stumbling block with certain companies over, not like it was maybe 10 years ago. But I think that there was that stigma, and I think being taken seriously is probably one of the hardest things.
I agree. I think building trust over the years in corporate environments where people had to begin to see that everyone again was pretty much identical in terms of they had a mind and a brain. It could be evolved, it could be developed. And sometimes it didn't mean necessarily that a role was more fit for a man or a woman, but that anyone could be very, very successful who was given the right opportunities. And so trust was a big thing. I think that has evolved over the years. That meaning there is a trust in the fact that both men and women can achieve at the very, very, very highest levels of skill and of thought and critical thinking, emotional thinking. But certainly we still bring certain points of difference to the table, and you'll hear both men and women in the greatest organizations. Again, I love to read bios on the greatest organizations and those that endured for years and years. And always there was this feeling of equality, always a feeling of equality throughout the entire organization in every way, all the way. It didn't matter if it was founded by a man or a woman. There was a feeling of equality. Mary Kay will tell you she had as many men working in the back of the house support services and other areas of the organization as she did women as agents. Yeah. So a very unbiased, equal opportunity employer, even running a makeup empire. Anything else? Is there anything from our online group that, if you have something, a profound comment you'd like to make, would you please email it to one of us?
Or they can chat it in the Well, now group. that you defined it as profound, I wasn't gonna say anything.
Is this profound enough?
Do you have any non-profound comment?
So Stephanie, would you please provide us with a profound comment? Well,
I don't have anything else.
if there's nothing more, we'll close for today. And what I hope, and I know that everyone in this organization, because you're all leaders, I hope what this will do is incite more open communication, and within the organization about roles and use each other as I do you and you do me to build and grow your own knowledge about these kinds of things where you're still, a bit, we're all learning in some area of our lives and careers, both personally and professionally. But hopefully this is a start of a springboard forward because we're all going into a new era. And I know that the leadership in this organization wants there to be an openness, a communication, a highly communicative and collaborative environment. That is absolutely what the organization and the family whose name is on the building, that's what they want more than anything. But it does take us to all work together to make that happen because we're the people sitting, we're that community that I spoke about earlier, sitting within the walls. And so make sure that you're talking. You don't have to do lunches or beer or anything together, and we get together for networking in a lot of ways, but make sure that you are spending time getting to know who your neighbors are and continue to build community, whether you're here at the office or you're not. Continue to build community in the same way you would have in your college mates, your high school mates, in your friendships outside of work, because that does make work more impassioning and it makes people more impassioned when we are all in community together here. Doesn't mean we all have to agree on everything. It doesn't mean that we don't get our feelings hurt when an idea of ours isn't used. We're all just people and we all have feelings, but we're going to be a better organization with more long-term benefits for everyone if that highest level of community spirit is being born from within and not forced or coerced. And the people who do that are the people sitting right here today. So appreciate everybody that signed up to come and